All right, so hi everyone. I'm Amanda. I'm the manager of EAP. So I have like an hour presentation that I'm going to quick get in and 25 minutes because I want to respect your time, but it's probably going to feel like I'm flying. So, and I'm fairly informal, so please like stop me, raise hands, just holler it out, whatever you want. So we're going to spend some time just talking about how to communicate better with each other. My goal for you guys is to just at least take a couple nuggets away. I don't think anybody's going to have this like life-changing moment just because of this, but nuggets that you can take away and hopefully pertain, whether it's a work situation, a home situation, or just in general being able to communicate and even communicating with patients too. So we're just going to learn how to communicate, so we don't need to go through all the objectives. But all right, so some barriers to communication. So throw out to me some automatic things that come to mind when you think about barriers to communication. I think. Like, so different styles? Emails, phone, voicemails, all those. You bet, you bet. What else? Assumptions? Absolutely, we do that all the time. Yeah. What else? Language barrier. Yeah, that is a big challenge. Any other thoughts?
Just not being together, everything's technology, so just not even being to see facial expressions.
You bet. What about communication barriers with someone right in front of you, whether it's a coworker, spouse, friend, parent? Yeah, definitely confidence. What else? Yep, makes a big difference.
Emotions?
Yes, emotions run high, depending on the situation. Okay, so let's talk through some. You guys identified quite a few. So something that we tend to do in communication is a lot of times we want to prove our point. So it's easy for me, there's so many examples politically right now where people just want to prove their point and they really don't care to listen to the other side. So that's an obvious example, but we all do the same thing, like just want to prove my point, want to be right, so we're not really listening to the other side. So that's what happens is we just stop listening. So how often, if you're honest with yourself, are you in a conversation that really you're just waiting for the other person to shut up so that you can say something? We do it all the time, right? So you're not really listening. It's like you're actively thinking about the next response or sometimes even predicting what they're going to say so then you can have this response. It's going to be real good, right? So we're not really listening, and that's our ego getting in the way, right? We want to be right. We all want to be right. We want to feel competent. We want to feel empowered. We want to walk away from situations feeling like we have control. That's just a big ball of ego, and that's a whole nother presentation we could go into. All right, emotions, anger. When we get mad, how well do we listen? We don't, and that's just human nature. Like we start to shut down, and people do that in a bunch of different variety of ways. But so that anger definitely plays a piece. Fear, when we're scared, okay, so a lot of times you automatically think of like physical fear, but emotional fear, and even if you don't think you're somebody that has emotional fear, I would challenge you to think about that. So a lot of times we don't say or do things because we're fearful of someone's reaction or fearful of how it's going to hurt their feelings or fearful of backlash or something. So then we don't communicate how we really feel because we don't want that fear to come true. Unclear of why we're upset. This is a good one. Like, and we all do it. Like, I'm just so mad. Why are you mad? I don't know. I'm just so mad, right? And then you try to communicate that, and you don't really know what it is you're mad about, so you just start bringing up 100 different things that you've been mad about. Like, and I think of this as really good in like a personal relationship that we do that too. So we'll bring up something that happened 10 years ago because, doggone it, that was something I was mad about, so I'm going to be mad about that now. Tone of voice, it's a great one. And a lot of times we think our tone of voice is perfectly fine, and it's not. Or our tone of voice is maybe joking in our family that we grew up in, but somebody else sees that as like sarcastic and mean, right? So when you talked about personality differences and like just our upbringing makes a big difference. Like the family I grew up in, we're kind of jokey and sarcastic, and my kids still get confused like when my dad does that because they're like, what? What's this? So, right? So that tone of voice just kind of can throw people off. And then body language, that's an obvious one. I know you guys are aware of that, but we do it all the time. And Hands on the hips, crossing the arms, or even just the facial expression on our face that kind of shows you I'm mad, even though I haven't told you I'm mad. And then we want to be in control. So that doesn't mean you're a control freak. It doesn't mean you have to have everything your way all the time. But when you're in a conversation, typically, and I'll talk about this now instead of fly through it later, we like to have, the goal would be to have a win-win conversation. But a lot of times they end up being a win-lose. And we don't want a win-lose conversation. So we want to walk away as the winner. We feel in control. We feel good. But the goal, to keep in mind, is we want each conversation to walk away as a win-win. So think about when you're in a conversation and you don't walk away as the winner. You walk away feeling pretty wounded. And like, that really kind of sucks. And I don't know that I want to talk to them about that again. But when you walk away as the winner, that was great. Glad we got that out in the air. I feel good, right? So the win-lose hurts somebody in that relationship, and that relationship has now been wounded. But if it's a win-win on both sides, then it's a productive, healthy, move-forward conversation. Does that make sense? Okay. And then our judgments. How quick do you think that we judge somebody when you first meet them? Yeah, 2 seconds. So for those of you that never seen me before, within 2 seconds, you had me all figured out. And so you sit through this and decide if you're right, or maybe I need to think about that differently. Either way, right? But that's just what we do. And so our preconceived judgments just right there sets our tone, sets our body language, sets our attitude. It sets everything. So it's just fascinating to me that we treat people off of those 2 seconds. And we do. Like, it's not that you're bad. That's just kind of how we do things. But it's good to be aware of. Okay, so part is really kind of meat and potatoes of some of this. So our thoughts affect our actions. So what you think affects how you feel, which affects what you do. So I like to break this down. One of my favorite examples that I use in a lot of different presentations is, let's say you leave here today, car pulls out in front of you, okay? A lot of the times, what do we think if a car pulls out in front of us? Yeah. Moron, idiot, they don't know how to drive, must be some young punk or some old lady, right? Like, we start making all these judgments, right? So then how do we feel? Yeah, we're mad. We're annoyed, irritated, whatever word you want to use. Those are just fancy words for mad. And then what do? Yeah, honk the horn, might yell something, might give a certain little wave. I had one person say, I follow him for 2 miles afterwards. We do all sorts of stuff, all because of what we thought, okay? So take the exact same example. Leave here, car pulls out in front of you, and it's like, oh, okay, sure they didn't mean to. I'm sure I've accidentally pulled out in front of people before, not realizing it. You're left feeling how? Yeah, fine, no big deal. And what do? Yeah, you just keep going. So we have a million of these scenarios every single day. And what's funny is that first scenario, you're fired up, you worked up, you either walk into work or walk in the house, this moron pulled out in front of me, right? It becomes this thing. Is where the second category, or the second example, you might not even mention it. You probably wouldn't because it really had no impact on you. So think about how worked up we get ourselves all day long because of what we think. So when you think of that with communication and the judgments that we're having, and the person is saying their side of the story, and if it's something that we see it differently, they're lying. They're a liar. No, they just see it differently. But yet, so then we're reacting to that message that we're telling ourselves about what's happening. So does that make sense in translation communication? So, in a perfect world, we could sit and practice this for hours and practice like the things that we're telling ourselves about the situation. And majority of the time, what we're telling ourselves is not fact. That is our emotional reaction, is what we are telling ourselves. And so then that's how we're responded. So just something to kind of chew on and to think about. And, not to make light of it, but the next time you're in maybe a little bit of a heated conversation with somebody, you can kind of be stopping, okay, what are my thoughts about this person? Chances are they're not really great. So then you're reacting to that and responding to that, and it's shutting down communication. Are you with me? Thoughts or comments on that, or pushback on that? Okay. All right, perception. Oh, this is so good. Okay, so perception and how this impacts things. All right, what do you guys see here? Okay, what else? Okay, so does everybody see pillars and then people facing? Yep, it can be pillars, chess pieces, or this is the profile of people. Okay, so you guys all saw the exact same picture at the exact same time, and yet we had a few different answers in this room because you have different perceptions. What about this? What do we see? Okay, so two different perceptions. I first saw an eyeball, and I was baffled by why there were so many soap suds in someone's eyeball and how they have their eyeball open with that many soap suds, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, sink drain, right? Same room, same time you saw it, different answers. What do we see here? Does anybody see a horse? I love all the heads. Okay, so, oops, I don't want to turn myself up. So, everybody see the frog? Yeah, okay. So the horse is actually looking up. So its nostrils are up this way. So the frog's eye is actually the horse's nose, and the frog's mouth is the horse's mouth. Then down here is the horse's eye, horse's ears, and then the mane. Are we seeing it a little more? Okay. Neither's right or wrong. Whatever answer you gave me, they're both exactly right, and they're fact, but they're different answers. Then the famous dress, right? This was around social media forever. So who sees what color? Does anybody see gold and white? Really? Oh, this is the first time. Okay, I always have at least one person that sees gold and white. So what happens is it has to do with your lens and eye reflecting and whatever. I don't know all the science behind all of it. But so like for example, I see the black and blue or like the lavenderish bluish color. Some people can see lavender, but a lot of people can also see that it's gold and white. So like my husband sees gold and white. I thought he was messing with me, so I was like, oh, let's go see what the kids see. Sure enough, one saw gold and white, one saw black and blue. So could I convince any of you that this is white and gold? No. I would have fought my husband to the death that this is not white and gold. Like, that's a ridiculous statement. But that's exactly what he saw. Now, neither of us, again, were right or wrong. So just think how much our perception has an impact on how we're walking into any of these conversations that we're having. And we believe our perception is truth. Because it is our truth. But we believe that it's the absolute truth. So somebody else's perception, of course you're not going to get it because you don't see the white and the gold. So what are you talking about? But that is their truth. That is their fact. So trying to realize your fact is your perception, your truth. It's not gospel. Okay? Which way is she turning? Does anybody see counterclockwise? You do? Yeah. Can anybody make her go both ways if you shut your eyes and try again?
Oh my gosh, everything's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And it depends on the day. There's days that I can go like this and see her go back and forth. There's other days it's like I could try for hours and I would never see her go the other way. Now, I don't know why. I don't know if it's just the way my brain's operating that day. Yep. So this is a day where I see her going clockwise. Okay, so again, both right. Okay, so our perceptions also lead us to confirmation bias. And this is just a concept that is just kind of fun to me because we do it all the time. So when you go buy a new car, what do you start to see on the road? You always see your car. Everyone's got this car, right? Never noticed it before, but all of a sudden, everyone's got this car. It's kind of you see what you want to see. And we do that with people all the time. Like, we see what we want to see in people. And we can really change our opinions of people based on confirmation bias. So also think about if you're looking for something on the internet and you kind of have an idea. and it kind of gives you, throws you a bone. Oh boy, yep, see, told you. Then you go down this rabbit hole and you have searched and you know that's the answer. Well, I could go down the opposite rabbit hole and this is the answer, right? We just have confirmation bias. So we go throughout our lives just confirming our beliefs and that we think, again, that they are truth. So there's Rich Bloomy is a gentleman that can come talk to organizations about different things and has books. But he always gave the example of yellow cars. Like, yellow cars are not that common. Like, they're probably the least common color. But now, after today, if you start looking for yellow cars, you're going to go see yellow cars. So do it on your next family trip, and it's kind of this fun little game, like yellow car, right? It just kind of reminds you of you get what you're looking for. So in a conversation, you're mad. Oh yeah, you can find more reasons to get mad, right? Or if there's somebody that you really enjoy, think about like maybe a coworker or an in-law or a family member that does something and it just confirms to you, yep, don't like them. Your best friend could do the exact same thing and you'd be like, that's hilarious. And that's what we do, right? It's just confirmation of how we're feeling about that person. Okay, so let's talk a little bit of communication here real quick. These are just going to be pointers. So I gave you things to think about, like what's going on in our head prior to actually the words coming out of our mouth. So those nuggets you can kind of think on a little bit. And I know people know these terms, but I'm always amazed at how people misunderstand them. So this is why I'm going over them. Maybe you guys understand them all, so I hope I'm not talking down to you, but it's just important for me to clarify it. So we have passive, aggressive, and assertive. So a passive person is like just afraid to speak, doesn't speak up. An aggressive person is like interrupts, talks over, and an assertive person just speaks openly but isn't aggressive towards them. What I hear people say who maybe struggle with being passive or passivity, then if they speak their mind, and they might be just really rude, but they'll be like, well, I was assertive. No, you were aggressive. And so that being assertive, it's a hard skill to learn. And I think, it's something nobody ever masters perfectly. But a lot of people tend to either be that really passive where I don't say anything, or I'm going to be aggressive and I'm going for the jugular when I'm having a conversation. So aggressive people are going to be in a conversation and they want a win-lose situation and they want to win. And even great people get aggressive, right? So this doesn't make you a bad person if you get aggressive. It's just that this is what we do and we get fired up. So the passive person typically is going to feel like the loser. But if there can be assertive, open conversation on both ends, then we can walk away with that win-win mentality and that win-win feeling. So I'm not going to take the time to go through all of these, but I just wanted to make sure that there was that clarification between that passive, aggressive, assertive. So we want you to speak your mind and how you feel about things, but not at the expense of someone else. We want to do it respectfully, right? So passive is, I don't say anything. Aggressive is like, you're crazy. I don't know why you think like that. And assertive is, I really see that differently. Can you help me understand how you see it, right? So there's a big difference. And assertive keeps the conversation going. Aggressive shuts people down. Passive, it just really shuts you down if you're being passive. Questions on clarifying between any of those? Okay. All right, so it's easy to talk about being assertive, but doing it can be hard. So this is just kind of a quick point out behavior, explain how the behavior affects you,